There is a reason your phone screen randomly lights up in the pitch black of your bedroom. It isn't a glitch, and it isn't a delayed notification. It's checking if you're still awake. And tonight, you really shouldn't have looked. Welcome back to the void. The human brain is hardwired to find patterns in the dark. We look at a coat hanging on the door and see a tall man. We look at a shadow on the wall and see a face. We comfort ourselves by calling it pareidolia, a harmless trick of the mind designed to keep our ancestors alert. But what they don't tell you is that sometimes the pattern isn't a trick. Sometimes the shadow is just waiting for you to look away so it can change its shape. I've been a freelance video editor for 5 years. When you spend that much time staring at high-definition footage in a dark room with headphones glued to your ears, you start to lose touch with reality. You notice things regular people miss. A single misplaced frame, a slight discoloration in the background, a shadow that doesn't align with the light source. You become hyper-aware. It was a Tuesday night, around 3 in the morning, when I received the email. My channel was growing, but the bills were piling up faster. The email came from an unlisted address, just a string of random numbers and letters. The subject line was blank. Inside, there was only a link to a cloud drive and a short message. Finish the edit. $5,000 upfront, $5,000 upon completion. No revisions needed. A $10,000 budget for a single video is absurd in this industry. Usually, that means the client is a major corporation or someone trying to hide something. I should have closed the tab. I should have gone to sleep. But desperation makes fools of us all. I clicked the link, downloaded the raw footage, and imported it into my editing software. The file was named simply raw_sequence_a1.mp4. It was a long-form video, roughly 20 minutes of unedited footage. When I dropped it onto the timeline, the audio track was almost entirely flatline, just a low, rhythmic hum that sounded like a heavy server room or a distant generator. The visuals were shot on what looked like an expensive camera, but the lighting was terrible. The footage showed the interior of an old, abandoned house. The camera was mounted on a tripod, completely static, staring down a long, narrow hallway. At the far end of the hallway was a closed wooden door with peeling white paint. That was it. For the first 5 minutes, absolutely nothing happened. I sped up the playback to 4 times the speed. Still, nothing. The door remained shut. The hallway stayed dark. I was beginning to think this was a prank or some avant-garde art project. I dragged the playhead further down the timeline, reaching the 12-minute mark. That's when the audio track spiked. It wasn't a loud noise. It was a sudden, sharp drop in the frequency of the hum, like a vacuum sucking out all the ambient sound. On screen, the closed door at the end of the hallway didn't open. Instead, the shadow underneath the door began to stretch. I paused the video. I zoomed in on the program monitor, turning the brightness and contrast all the way up. The shadow wasn't just creeping out from under the door. It was rising. It detached itself from the floor, forming a tall, unnaturally thin silhouette against the white paint of the door. It had no face, no distinct features, just a void of pure blackness that seemed to absorb the light around it. I pressed play again. The silhouette didn't move. It just stood there, perfectly still, for another 3 minutes. I felt a cold chill run down my spine. The atmosphere in my home studio suddenly felt heavy, the air thick and difficult to breathe. I told myself it was just the caffeine, just the exhaustion of working the night shift. I decided to scrub through the footage, frame by frame, using the arrow keys on my keyboard. This is a standard technique for editors, to find the exact moment a cut needs to happen. Click, the shadow shifted. Click, it shifted again. I froze. When the video played at normal speed, the entity appeared completely stationary. But when I moved frame by frame, I realized something terrifying. The entity was moving, but it wasn't moving forward in time. It was moving between the frames. It was reacting to the cuts. Every time I pressed the right arrow key to move forward 1 frame, the silhouette didn't get closer to the camera. It stayed in place. But when I pressed the left arrow key to move backward, the silhouette took a massive step forward. My breath hitched. I clicked the left arrow key rapidly. Left, the entity was halfway down the hallway. Left, it was closer. Its long, spindly limbs bending at impossible angles. Left, it was right in front of the lens. The screen went entirely black. The audio track completely flatlined into a dead, absolute silence. I sat there in the dark, the glow of my dual monitors casting a pale blue light across my hands. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I tried to convince myself it was a highly sophisticated horror project, a clever use of reverse keyframing designed to mess with the editor. The client knew exactly what they were doing. They wanted to scare me. I laughed out loud, a nervous, hollow sound that died instantly in the quiet room. I reached for my mouse to close the software, deciding that the $10,000 wasn't worth my sanity. I would finish it in the morning, in the safety of the daylight. But the mouse wouldn't move. The cursor was locked in the center of the black screen. I pressed Ctrl Alt+ delete. Nothing happened. The keyboard was unresponsive. The computer fans, which usually roared like a jet engine when rendering video, suddenly went dead silent. The only sound in the entire room was the frantic, uneven rhythm of my own breathing. Then, a new notification popped up in the bottom right corner of my screen. It wasn't a system update. It was an incoming file transfer from the same anonymous source. The file name was live_feed.mov. Before I could even process what was happening, the editing software forced itself open again. The black screen vanished, replaced by a new video track on the timeline. The footage was crisp, high definition, and brightly lit. It showed a modern room, a desk, 2 monitors casting a pale blue light, and a guy sitting in a gaming chair, staring at the screen with an expression of pure horror. It was me. The video was a live feed of my own room, shot from an angle directly behind my left shoulder. A wave of primal, icy terror washed over me. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. My eyes were glued to the monitor, watching the digital version of myself. Slowly, carefully, I tilted my head just an inch to the side, looking at the reflection in the dark glass of my window. There was nothing behind me. The corner of my room was empty. I looked back at the monitor. In the video feed, the corner of my room wasn't empty. Standing directly behind my chair was the tall, unnaturally thin silhouette from the hallway. Its long, shadow-like fingers were hovering just inches away from the back of my neck. It was standing perfectly still, waiting. I realized then why the video in the hallway only moved when I scrubbed backward. The entity didn't exist in our dimension of time. It lived in the spaces between moments, in the fractions of a second when we blink, when the camera cuts, when the mind is looking away. In the live feed on my monitor, the digital version of me slowly started to turn around to look behind him. I tried to scream, but my throat was completely dry, locking the sound inside my chest. I knew with absolute certainty that if I turned around in real life, if I faced whatever was standing in the dark behind me, the video would end, and so would I. I kept my eyes locked on the monitor, watching the entity on screen slowly lower its hands toward my shoulders. My fingers gripped the edge of the desk so hard my knuckles turned white. Suddenly, my phone on the desk lit up. The bright light shattered the darkness of the room. The cursor on my screen snapped back to life. The computer fans roared into existence, and the editing software crashed, closing instantly and leaving me staring at my desktop wallpaper. I didn't waste a single second. I leapt out of my chair, sprinting across the room, tearing the door open, and flying down the stairs. I ran out of the house into the cool night air, not stopping until I reached the bright, artificial safety of a 24-hour gas station down the street. I spent the rest of the night sitting on the curb, watching the sun slowly rise over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The daylight brought a fragile sense of safety, but the terror lingering in the back of my mind refused to fade. When I finally gathered the courage to return to my house later that morning, everything looked completely normal. My studio was exactly how I left it. The computer was sitting on the lock screen. I logged in, my hands still shaking slightly. The editing software was closed. The downloaded files were gone. There was no trace of raw_sequence_a1.mp4, no live_feed.mov, and the cloud drive link in the email led to a 400 for error page. Even the email itself had vanished from my inbox. But there was one thing left behind. On my desktop, there was a single new text document named readme.txt. With a trembling hand, I clicked it open. The document contained only one sentence, written in clean, stark capital letters. "Thank you for making the cut. We are much closer now. It's been 3 weeks since that night. I haven't edited a single video since." I moved my desk into the living room, right under the brightest light fixture in the house. I keep every lamp turned on, 24 hours a day. I don't sleep in the dark anymore. But it doesn't matter, because every time I close my eyes to blink, just for a fraction of a second, I hear the sudden, sharp drop in the ambient sound around me. I feel the air turn ice cold, and in that tiny, dark space between opening and closing my eyelids, I can see the silhouette. It's getting closer, frame by frame. So, if you're watching this video late at night, in the dark, thinking it's just another scary story to help you pass the time. Do me a favor, check the corners of your room, look at the shadows stretching under your door, and whatever you do, try not to blink.